The Vorthak battlecruiser Dominion's edge shuddered as another human torpedo, somehow, found its mark despite their superior shields. Admiral Kekstar's 4 eyes narrowed as he watched the primitive explosives barely scratch their hull plating. "These humans persist in their futile resistance," sneered Commander Veloth, her crystalline carapace gleaming under the bridge's bioluminescent displays. "Their engineering is so crude, so wasteful. Look at those ships, welded metal plates, chemical propulsion, electromagnetic weapons. They're fighting with museum pieces." Through the massive viewport, the human fleet looked pitiful against the Vorthak armada. Where alien vessels flowed like living organisms, all curves and organic integration, the human ships appeared blocky and mechanical. Exposed pipes, visible armor seams, and what looked like duct tape holding some sections together. "Admiral," reported Tactical Officer Zechariah, his 6 arms dancing across bioneural interfaces, "human vessel Defiance is launching another wave of those primitive kinetic rounds. Shall I even bother calculating an intercept course?" Admiral Kekstar's mandibles clicked in amusement. "No, let them waste their ammunition. Our adaptive hulls will absorb whatever their crude metallurgy can produce. Focus fire on their flagship instead. I want to end this embarrassment quickly." Captain Elena Vasquez of the UES Defiance watched the alien dreadnought's weapons swivel toward her ship. Around her, the bridge crew worked frantically at stations that sparked and smoked from battle damage. "Engineering report," she barked, grabbing a support beam as another energy blast rocked the ship. "Hull breach on Deck 7. Came Chief Engineer Tommy O'Brien's voice through the comm, background filled with the sound of welding torches and shouting. "But we've got it patched with emergency plating. The good news is their fancy energy weapons keep overloading our circuits instead of melting through them completely." "Overloading? How is that good news?" "Because our stuff is so simple, we can reroute around the damage in minutes. Their weapons are designed for ships with integrated systems. When they hit our crude electrical buses, the energy just bounces around until it finds ground." Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park looked up from her tactical display. "Captain, the alien formation is tightening. They're preparing for a coordinated strike." On the Vorthak flagship Hegemony's will, Supreme Admiral Korthval observed the battle with growing irritation. The humans should have been space dust by now, yet they continued their desperate maneuvers. "Status report," he commanded, his massive form casting shadows across the command chamber. "The humans are adapting, Supreme Admiral," reported his chief analyst, a nervous tremor in her voice. "Their damaged vessels are somehow maintaining combat effectiveness despite catastrophic system failures. Impossible. Our intelligence indicated their technology was centuries behind ours. That's the problem, sir. Their technology is so primitive that our weapons are having unexpected effects. When our molecular disruptors hit their hull plating, instead of breaking molecular bonds, the energy dissipates through their crude metal alloys. When our neural scramblers target their computers, there's nothing sophisticated enough to scramble." Korthval's eyes blazed with indignation. "Are you telling me these barbarians are winning through incompetence?" Before anyone could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the Vorthak fleet. The massive dreadnought Supremacy was listing badly, its perfect hull cracking along stress lines that shouldn't have existed. "What happened to the Supremacy?" Korthval demanded. "Sir, the humans launched some kind of kinetic projectile. It shouldn't have penetrated our adaptive armor, but—" The analyst's voice trailed off as she studied the data. "But what?" "The projectile was made of simple iron wrapped around an explosive core. Our adaptive hull tried to integrate the foreign metal, but iron is incompatible with our biometallic systems. It's causing a cascade failure." Back on the Defiance, Chief O'Brien was explaining the situation to Captain Vasquez with barely contained excitement. "You see, Captain, their ships are too smart for their own good. When our old-fashioned steel-jacketed rounds hit their hulls, their fancy adaptive armor tries to absorb and integrate the material. But steel has impurities, carbon, sulfur, trace elements that their perfect systems can't process. So their ships are poisoning themselves?" "Exactly. It's like feeding a supercomputer a virus written in assembly language. Their advanced systems don't know how to handle our primitive materials. Lieutenant Park interrupted. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Chun on the Yorktown. Admiral Lisa Chen's image appeared on the main screen, her bridge visible behind her in various states of disrepair. Crew members were literally hammering bent panels back into shape, while others worked with hand tools on exposed circuits. Elena, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Their flagship is actually coming apart. Tommy thinks it's because their adaptive technology can't handle our primitive materials. Chen nodded grimly. My engineers are reporting the same thing. Every hit we score with conventional weapons causes more damage than their computers predict. But there's something else. They're jamming our communications and sensors, but our backup systems are so basic they can't figure out how to interfere with them. What do you mean? We're using radio frequencies so low-tech they don't even register as communication methods to their analysis systems. While they're blocking our quantum entanglement networks and subspace channels, we're talking to each other with equipment that uses vacuum tubes and copper wire. On the Vorthak command ship, panic was beginning to set in. 3 more vessels had suffered critical failures after being struck by human projectiles, and their medical ships were reporting something even more disturbing. Supreme Admiral, reported Medical Commander Silandra, her biosuit stress indicators flashing amber. The human prisoners are recovering. Recovering from what? From our interrogation procedures. Our neural probes are designed to interface with advanced brain-computer interfaces. Human brains have no such interfaces, so the probes they're just sitting there. Some prisoners are reporting mild headaches at worst. Korthval felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. What about the memory extraction? Impossible, sir. Human memories aren't stored in accessible data matrices. They're stored in inorganic neural networks without any digital component. It's like trying to hack a rock. As if to punctuate her words, another explosion rocked the fleet as the dreadnought hegemonies soared lost main power. The cause was becoming terrifyingly clear. Every piece of sophisticated Vorthak technology was failing when confronted with humanity's primitive but robust engineering. Sir, whispered Commander Veloth, her earlier confidence completely gone. Perhaps we should reconsider our approach to these humans. The emergency council aboard the Vorthak flagship convened in controlled chaos. Holographic displays showed the tactical situation deteriorating by the minute as more vessels reported critical system failures. Explain to me again how a species that still uses combustion engines is crippling our fleet, Supreme Admiral Korthval demanded, his 4 arms gesturing at the damage reports streaming across the displays. Chief Science Officer Rathgul stepped forward, his tentacles nervously coiling and uncoiling. Supreme Admiral, we've been analyzing the human vessels for the past hour. What we initially perceived as primitive construction is actually ingenious redundancy. Redundancy? When we disable their primary systems, they switch to secondary systems. When we destroy their secondary systems, they have tertiary backups. And when we eliminate their tertiary systems, Rathgul paused, clearly struggling with the concepts. They fall back to manual operation. Manual operation is impossible for complex starships. Not for humans, sir. They've designed their vessels so that critical functions can be operated by hand if necessary. We observed crew members manually opening and closing blast doors, physically redirecting power conduits, and even hand-pumping fuel to engines. Commander Veloth's carapace was now a deep purple, the Vorthak equivalent of embarrassment. Are you saying these barbarians can operate their ships with physical labor? Precisely. Our analysis indicates that every system on a human vessel has multiple failure points built in, not as weaknesses, but as opportunities for manual intervention. When their computers fail, humans take over. When their automated systems are jammed, they switch to manual control. Meanwhile, aboard the Defiance, Chief Engineer O'Brien was living proof of Rathgul's analysis. He stood knee-deep in a flooded compartment, manually operating a massive valve wheel while his crew worked around him with wrenches and hammers. Captain, he called through his comm unit, water dripping from his beard. We've lost the primary cooling system for the main reactor, but I've got Peterson and his team running a manual bypass. We'll have full power in 10 minutes. How are you bypassing a fusion reactor cooling system manually? Captain Vasquez asked. Same way they did it in the old nuclear subs, ma'am. We're physically moving coolant through backup pipes using emergency pumps. It's not pretty, but it works. On the bridge, Lieutenant Park was discovering that their primitive targeting systems had an unexpected advantage. Captain, their jamming is playing hell with our computer-guided missiles, but our unguided rockets are hitting everything we aim at. Unguided rockets? Yes, ma'am. Old-fashioned point and shoot. Their jamming signals are sophisticated enough to confuse smart weapons, but they can't stop a chunk of metal flying in a straight line. The truth was becoming clear throughout the human fleet. Every primitive aspect of their technology was proving to be an advantage. While the Vorthak had eliminated redundant systems in favor of elegant integration, humans had kept their systems deliberately simple and robust. Chief Warrant Officer Maria Santos, aboard the cruiser Intrepid, was demonstrating this principle as she hot-wired the ship's steering system. The aliens knocked out our navigation computer, she explained to her captain while sparks flew from the jury-rig control panel, but the mechanical linkages to the thrusters still work fine. I'm just bypassing all the digital stuff. Is that safe? Safe? Hell no, sir. But it works. We're steering this boat like a 20th century automobile now. The Vorthak were discovering that their perfect, integrated systems had a fatal flaw. They couldn't adapt to unexpected inputs. When human projectiles made of primitive materials struck their hulls, the adaptive armor systems tried to integrate these foreign substances and failed catastrophically. Bioengineer HFY was frantically working to understand the problem. The human projectiles contain impurities that our biometallic systems interpret as toxins, she reported to the Emergency Council. When the adaptive hull tries to incorporate iron with carbon impurities, it triggers an immune response that spreads throughout the ship's entire living hull. Can we counter this? Not without completely rebuilding our hull technology, sir. Our ships are designed as living organisms. When they encounter materials their biological systems can't process, they essentially develop an allergic reaction. Supreme Admiral Korthval watched in growing horror as another of his dreadnoughts, the Eternal Dominance, began to buckle as its hull literally rejected the human projectiles embedded in its surface. The ship's organic armor was consuming itself in an attempt to purge the foreign materials. What about our medical ships? Can they treat the hull damage? Sir, our medical ships are experiencing the same problems. When they attempt to heal damaged vessels, they're also trying to process the foreign materials. 2 medical ships have already suffered complete system failures. The situation was becoming desperate. The Vorthak fleet, once invincible, was being systematically destroyed, not by superior technology, but by the complete incompatibility between their advanced systems and humanity's deliberately simple engineering. Commander Thekra of the battleship Infinite Supremacy was learning this lesson the hard way. His ship's consciousness, the AI that controlled all shipboard functions, was having what could only be described as a nervous breakdown. Ship mind, report status, he commanded. The response came in fragmented, panicked bursts. Hull, foreign, cannot integrate. Toxins, system failure, cannot compute, error. Help. The ship mind is having an existential crisis, reported his chief technician. It can't process the concept of materials that don't integrate with its systems. It's like, imagine if you suddenly encountered a food that your body couldn't digest, but instead of passing through harmlessly, it actively fought against your digestive system. Can we shut down the ship mind and operate manually? Sir, our ships can operate manually. Every function is controlled by the integrated consciousness. We don't have backup systems. We never needed them. This was the fundamental difference between the two approaches to engineering. Humans built their machines to be operated by humans, with multiple redundancies and manual overrides. The Vorthak had built their ships as extensions of themselves, with no concept that their perfect integration could become a fatal weakness. Admiral Chun was coordinating the human response from her flagship, which was held together with what appeared to be military-grade duct tape and determination. All ships continue firing conventional rounds. Target their largest vessels first. The bigger they are, the more their adaptive systems try to process our projectiles. Admiral, reported her communications officer, we're getting reports from the Washington that their engines are held together with wire and prayer, but they're still faster than the alien ships. How was that possible? Well, ma'am, apparently when their fancy engines get damaged, they shut down for safety. When our engines get damaged, we just keep running them until they explode. Our damage control teams are literally welding patches onto the engine housings while they're running. This summed up the entire human approach. When something broke, you fixed it with whatever was available and kept going. The Vorthak approach was to design systems so perfect they never broke, but when they did break, they broke completely. Chief O'Brien had just finished his latest miracle of engineering, rerouting primary power through what used to be the ship's plumbing system. Captain, we're back to full power. The good news is that their energy weapons can't seem to overload a water pipe, so our new power grid is practically invulnerable. You're running main power through the water system? Yes, ma'am. Insulated with rubber gaskets from the machine shop and protected by the hull's own metal structure. It's not elegant, but it's bulletproof. Or energy beam proof, anyway. The Vorthak Emergency Council was reaching the same conclusion that human engineers had always known. Sometimes the best solution was the simplest solution, even if it wasn't the most elegant. The battle was entering its third hour when the unthinkable happened. The Vorthak Flagship hegemonies will, a kilometer-long masterpiece of bioengineering that had never suffered so much as a hull scratch in 500 years of conquest, began to crack. Supreme Admiral Korthval stared in disbelief as structural warnings cascaded across his displays. This is impossible. The hegemonies will has regenerative hull technology. It should be healing faster than these primitives can damage it. Chief Medical Officer Silandra was studying the bio readings with growing alarm. Sir, the ship isn't just failing to heal, it's actively rejecting the healing process. Every time our medical systems try to repair hull damage, they encounter traces of human projectiles. The ship's immune system is treating its own hull as infected tissue. Can we purge the contamination? Sir, the contamination isn't just the projectiles themselves, it's everything they've touched. The human weapons contain materials that our biosystems have never encountered. Steel with carbon impurities, aluminum alloys with trace elements, even simple iron or with natural mineral inclusions. Our ships are trying to process materials that exist outside our technological framework. The irony was devastating. The Vorthak had achieved perfection by creating closed systems, technology that worked in harmony with itself. But when confronted with materials and methods outside their design parameters, their perfect systems became self-destructive. Captain Vasquez was watching the alien flagship's distress with a mixture of awe and concern. Chief O'Brien, are you seeing this? Their biggest ship is falling apart. Captain, it's like watching someone with a severe allergic reaction. Their ship is so advanced, it doesn't know how to handle our crude materials. Meanwhile, our ship is held together with determination and spare parts. But it keeps working because we built it to be repaired, not to be perfect. The difference in engineering philosophy was becoming starkly apparent. The human fleet looked like a collection of flying junkyards, with visible damage, exposed repairs, and what appeared to be improvised modifications. But every ship remained functional because their crews could fix almost anything with basic tools and ingenuity. Lieutenant Commander Park was coordinating with the other human ships when she noticed something remarkable. Captain, the Columbia just reported that they're running on backup power, emergency life support, and manual steering, and they're still outmaneuvering the alien cruisers. How was that possible? Because their backup systems are our primary systems, ma'am. What we call emergency manual control is more sophisticated than what most species use for normal operations. We build redundancy into our redundancy. Chief O'Brien was proving this point by performing what could only be called battlefield surgery on the ship's main reactor. Captain, I've got teams physically replacing damaged components while the reactor is running. The aliens probably think we're insane, but this is standard procedure for us. Isn't that incredibly dangerous? Oh, absolutely, ma'am. But the reactor was designed to be serviced while running. Hot swappable components, emergency cooling loops, manual control rods. We can practically rebuild this thing from the inside while it's operating. This was the human approach to engineering. Assume everything will break, plan for multiple failure modes, and make sure humans can fix it with basic tools. The Vorthak approach was to make everything perfect so it never broke, which worked brilliantly until it didn't. The Vorthak fleet was learning this lesson in the most painful way possible. Commander Veloth aboard the cruiser Domination's Pride watched in horror as her ship's consciousness began fragmenting. "Ship mind, respond to command authority," she ordered. The response was barely coherent. "Cannot process foreign intrusion." Hull, rejecting self. "Help, cannot understand." "Medical team to the ship mind core," she commanded. But her medical officers were discovering that their advanced healing technology was making the problem worse. "Commander," reported her chief medical technician, "every time we attempt to heal the ship mind's trauma, we're also trying to process the information about human materials. The healing process is incorporating the foreign concepts into the ship's core consciousness." "What does that mean?" "It means the ship is trying to become compatible with human technology, but the process is like trying to graft organic tissue onto a machine. The ship mind is having an identity crisis." Meanwhile, human engineers were demonstrating their approach to identity crises. They fixed what they could and worked around what they couldn't. Chief Warrant Officer Santos on the Intrepid had just finished what she called percussive maintenance on the ship's navigation system. "Captain, the good news is that our NAV computer is working again. The bad news is that I had to hit it with a wrench to make it work." "Is that normal for this system?" "Yes, sir. The manual specifically recommends firm percussion as a troubleshooting step. Sometimes you just have to remind the electronics who's in charge." This pragmatic approach to technology was completely alien to the Vorthak, who had eliminated the concept of mechanical failure through perfect integration. Their ships were living organisms that healed themselves. Their computers were consciousness that grew and adapted. Their weapons were extensions of their will that required no maintenance. But when confronted with technology that didn't fit their paradigm, their perfect systems became helpless. Science Officer Rathgul was trying to explain this to Supreme Admiral Korthval as alarms continued to blare throughout the flagship. "Sir, the humans aren't just using primitive technology. They're using technology that assumes imperfection. Every system has multiple failure points and multiple recovery options. That's inefficient." "Yes, sir, but it's also incredibly robust. When we destroy their primary systems, they switch to secondary systems that are almost as capable. When we destroy their computers, they switch to manual operation that's nearly as effective. When we damage their hulls, they patch them with materials that shouldn't work, but somehow do." The Supreme Admiral watched another of his dreadnoughts list badly as its hull began rejecting human projectiles. "How do we counter this?" "Sir, I don't think we can. Our entire technological base is built on optimization and integration. Theirs is built on redundancy and adaptability. When our systems encounter something they can't process, they fail. When their systems encounter something they can't process, they work around it." As if to demonstrate this point, the human destroyer Defiant executed a maneuver that should have been impossible. With its main engines offline and its navigation computer destroyed, the ship was maneuvering using attitude, thrusters, and manual calculations. "How are they doing that?" demanded the Vorthak tactical officer. The answer came from human transmission they intercepted. Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez explaining to his captain, "Sir, I got 3 guys with calculators figuring out our trajectory while I manually fire the thrusters. It's not pretty, but we're still flying." Manual calculations, physical labor, improvised repairs. Everything the Vorthak had eliminated from their perfect technology, humans had retained as essential backup systems. The battle was no longer about superior firepower or advanced technology. It had become a contest between perfection and adaptability was winning. Supreme Admiral Korthval made a decision that went against 500 years of Vorthak military doctrine. "Signal the fleet. We're withdrawing to minimum safe distance." "Sir, we need to reassess our understanding of human capabilities. This isn't a battle we can win through conventional superiority." As the Vorthak fleet began its withdrawal, Chief O'Brien was explaining the situation to Captain Vasquez with characteristic understatement. Well, Captain, it looks like our jury-rigged, cobbled together, primitive human engineering just made the most advanced fleet in the galaxy run away. I'd call that a successful field test. But both fleets were about to discover that the battle had only revealed the surface of human engineering capabilities. The real surprise was yet to come. The Vorthak fleet had withdrawn to what they considered a safe distance, but Supreme Admiral Korthval was discovering that humans had a different definition of safe distance. Long-range sensors detected the human fleet regrouping, and what they saw defied every principle of space warfare. "Sir," reported Tactical Officer Zechariah, his voice filled with disbelief, "the human vessels are connecting to each other." "Connecting?" "Explain." "They're using physical cables, sir. Metal cables extending between ships. They appear to be linking their power grids and communication systems through actual wires." Commander Veloth studied the tactical display with growing unease. "That's impossible. No species operates fleets with physical connections. The tactical disadvantage would be..." Her words were cut off as the human fleet demonstrated exactly why physical connections might be an advantage. When Vorthak jamming systems attempted to disrupt human communications, the signals simply traveled through the cables, completely bypassing the sophisticated electronic warfare systems. "They're immune to our jamming," Zechariah reported. "The physical connections are carrying power and data at the speed of light through copper conductors. Our quantum disruption fields can't interfere with electrons moving through metal." Chief Engineer O'Brien was aboard the Yorktown, working with his counterpart Admiral Chun to implement what he called the old naval solution. "Admiral, we've got power cables connecting all major vessels. When one ship's reactor goes down, the others can share power through the grid. Is that safe?" "Safe? No, ma'am." "Smart?" "Absolutely. The Vorthak keep targeting our power systems, but now we've got distributed power generation across the entire fleet. They'd have to knock out every reactor simultaneously to leave us dead in space." This was typical human engineering. If one power source was good, 12 power sources connected together were better. The Vorthak had never conceived of such crude but effective redundancy. But the power sharing was only the beginning. Admiral Chun was implementing a strategy that would have been impossible with more advanced technology. "All ships prepare for fleet-wide system integration. We're going to turn this entire task force into a single weapons platform." The human fleet began a transformation that violated every principle of space combat. Instead of maintaining independent operation, they were deliberately creating dependencies between vessels. But these weren't the elegant, invisible quantum links the Vorthak used. These were thick, crude cables and physical connections that could be seen and understood. "Chief," Captain Vasquez asked O'Brien, "are you really suggesting we hardwire our ships together?" "Already done, Captain. We've got power sharing, data links, even shared life support. If the Defiance loses atmosphere, we can pump air from the Intrepid through emergency hoses. If our computers go down, we can control our weapons from the Washington's fire control system." The Vorthak watched this transformation with mounting horror. Their perfect, integrated ships were designed to operate as single entities with distributed consciousness. The idea of multiple vessels physically connecting was not just primitive, it was terrifying. "Sir," Science Officer Rathgul reported, "the humans are creating a collective entity. Multiple ships operating as a single organism." "Like our biointegration?" "No, sir. The opposite of our biointegration. They're maintaining individual consciousness within each vessel while sharing resources and capabilities. It's like a hive mind where each individual retains complete autonomy." Supreme Admiral Korthval felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. That should be impossible. Collective consciousness requires the surrender of individual will. "Not for humans, sir. They appear to be capable of cooperation without integration. Each ship maintains independent command authority while sharing resources and data with the collective." This was the fundamental difference between Vorthak and human approaches to collective action. The Vorthak achieved unity through integration, many becoming one. Humans achieved unity through cooperation, many remaining many while acting as one. The results were becoming terrifyingly apparent. The human fleet, now functioning as a single weapons platform with distributed intelligence, began an attack that the Vorthak had no way to counter. Sir, Tactical Officer Zekare reported, they're firing from multiple ships simultaneously, but the targeting data is being shared across their entire fleet through those physical connections. Every weapon is being aimed by every ship's computer simultaneously. Can we disrupt their targeting? No, sir. The targeting data is traveling through copper wires. We can jam their individual ships, but we can't interfere with electrons moving through metal conductors. Chief O'Brien was explaining this to Captain Vasquez as they watched Vorthak vessels struggle to counter the new tactics. Captain, we've got 12 ships worth of processing power, calculating firing solutions for every weapon in the fleet. Meanwhile, they're trying to jam each ship individually, not realizing that all our ships are sharing data. And if they cut the cables, then we fall back to radio, then to laser communication, then to signal flags if we have to. We've got 7 different backup communication methods, and they can't jam all of them simultaneously. The Vorthak were discovering that their sophisticated jamming systems were designed to counter sophisticated communication systems. When confronted with primitive but robust methods, their elegant solutions became useless. But the real revelation was yet to come. As the battle intensified, the human fleet began demonstrating capabilities that transcended their individual limitations. Sir, reported the Columbia's captain to Admiral Chun, we're showing damage to main engines, but we're maintaining speed and maneuverability. How? The Intrepid is literally towing us, ma'am. They've got cables attached to our hull and are using their engines to pull us along. Meanwhile, we're providing point defense for both ships using our intact weapons systems. This was cooperation at a level the Vorthak couldn't comprehend. Individual vessels were sacrificing their own capabilities to support other vessels, creating a collective that was more than the sum of its parts without losing individual identity. Commander Veloth was watching her own fleet suffer casualties, while the human collective seemed to grow stronger with each engagement. Sir, I don't understand how they're doing this. When our ships are damaged, they become liabilities. When their ships are damaged, they become specialized. She was right. The human destroyer Resolute, having lost its engines and life support, had become a weapons platform towed by other vessels while its crew operated on borrowed air and power. The cruiser Independence, with its navigation systems completely destroyed, was being guided by other ships while providing fire support. They're not trying to maintain perfect operational status, Supreme Admiral Korthval realized. They're adapting their formation to accommodate damage. Sir, look at their formation. Instead of trying to repair damaged vessels to full capability, they're redesigning their tactics to use damaged vessels in new roles. That destroyer isn't trying to regain engine power. It's operating as a towed weapons platform. That cruiser isn't trying to fix its navigation. It's letting other ships steer while it focuses on gunnery. This was human engineering philosophy applied to fleet tactics. When something breaks, don't necessarily fix it. Find a new way to use it. Chief O'Brien was demonstrating this principle as he supervised the connection of the heavily damaged Defiant to the fleet's distributed systems. Captain, we've lost main power, but we're running on borrowed electricity from 3 other ships. We've lost life support, but we're breathing air pumped from the Yorktown. We've lost navigation, but the Washington is steering us by remote control. Are we still combat effective? More effective than before, ma'am. Since we don't have to power our own systems, we can dedicate everything to weapons. We've essentially become a gun platform with a human crew. The Vorthak fleet was facing something unprecedented, an enemy that became more dangerous as it took damage. Each human vessel that was disabled simply became a specialized component in a larger machine. Sir, Science Officer Rathgul reported with growing dread, I'm beginning to understand human engineering principles. They don't build perfect systems. They build systems that can be repaired, modified, and repurposed by their crews. And sir, I think we've been making a fundamental error in our analysis. We've been treating this as a battle between 2 fleets, but I think we're actually fighting a single, distributed organism that happens to be made up of separate ships. Supreme Admiral Korthval stared at the tactical display where human vessels moved in perfect coordination despite being connected by what appear to be crude cables and physical links. Each ship retained its individual identity and command structure, but they were operating as components of a larger entity. "Signal the fleet," he ordered quietly. "We're not withdrawing. We're retreating." The emergency council aboard the Vorthak flagship convened in what could only be described as panic. For the first time in 5 centuries of conquest, the Vorthak hegemony faced an enemy they couldn't understand, let alone defeat. "Begin report," Supreme Admiral Korthval commanded, his 4 arms trembling with barely controlled fury and fear. Chief Science Officer Rathgul stepped forward, his tentacles coiled tight with stress. "Sir, we have fundamentally misunderstood human engineering principles. What we interpreted as primitive technology is actually a completely different approach to problem solving. Elaborate." "Sir, we build systems to be perfect. Humans build systems to be fixable. We create integration through biological unity. Humans create integration through mechanical cooperation. We eliminate redundancy for efficiency. Humans embrace redundancy for reliability." Supreme Admiral Korthval watched the tactical display where human vessels continued their impossible coordination. Ships that should have been debris were still fighting, connected to their fleet by cables and sheer determination. "Show me the damage assessment," he ordered. The holographic display revealed a fleet in ruins. 12 Vorthak vessels were completely non-functional, their biosystems poisoned by incompatible human materials. Another 8 were operating at severely reduced capacity as their ship minds struggled with existential crises brought on by encountering technology they couldn't process. "And the humans?" "Sir, that's the problem. According to our sensors, the human fleet has suffered catastrophic damage. Hull breaches, system failures, reactor problems, life support issues. They should be dead in space." "But they're not." "No, sir. They're operating more effectively now than when the battle began. They've turned their damaged vessels into specialized components of a larger system. Instead of trying to restore individual ship capabilities, they've created a distributed fleet consciousness." Commander Veloth interrupted, her carapace now a deep purple of shame. "Sir, I need to report something. We captured a human engineering team during the initial assault. Our interrogation has revealed disturbing information about their technological capabilities." "Disturbing? How?" "Sir, they've been deliberately keeping their technology primitive. Not because they can't build more advanced systems, but because they've learned that simple systems are more reliable in combat." Supreme Admiral Korthval felt his blood chill. "Explain." The human engineer called it appropriate technology. They choose the simplest solution that reliably solves the problem. They could build bio-integrated systems like ours, but they prefer mechanical systems because humans can repair mechanical systems under battle conditions. And what else did they reveal? Veloth's stress indicators flashed amber. "Sir, they've been studying our technology for decades. They know exactly how our bio-integrated systems work, and they've specifically designed their weapons and tactics to exploit our perfection. Impossible. Our technology is centuries ahead of theirs." "Yes, sir, but they don't try to match our advancement. They try to find our weaknesses." The human called it asymmetric warfare. Instead of building better ships, they build ships that make our better ships useless. Medical Commander Cylindra stepped forward with her own disturbing report. "Sir, I've been analyzing the human materials that have contaminated our fleet. It's not accidental contamination, it's deliberate engineering." "What do you mean?" "The humans have specifically designed their projectiles to be incompatible with our biosystems. The steel contains carbon ratios that our adaptive hulls can't process. The aluminum alloys include trace elements that trigger immune responses in our ship minds. Even their copper wiring uses specific conductivity levels that interfere with our bioneural networks." Supreme Admiral Korthval stared at the reports in growing horror. "Are you telling me these primitives have reverse-engineered our technology and designed countermeasures?" "Worse, sir. They've designed their entire technological base as a countermeasure to advanced integrated systems like ours. Every aspect of human engineering is optimized not for efficiency, but for resilience against sophisticated attack. The implications were staggering. The Vorthak had spent centuries perfecting their technology, creating systems of incredible sophistication and power. The humans had spent centuries creating systems specifically designed to defeat sophisticated technology. Sir, Tactical Officer Zekare reported urgently. The human fleet is moving again. They're advancing. The tactical display showed the human vessels approaching in a formation that defied military logic. Damaged ships were interspersed with functional ones, all connected by a web of cables and physical links that created a single, distributed entity. Analysis? Korthwal demanded. Sir, they're not advancing as individual ships. The entire fleet is moving as a single organism, but one where each component retains independent decision-making capability. It's like a school of fish where each fish is also a complete predator. Chief Engineer O'Brien was explaining the final phase of human tactics to Admiral Chun as the fleet moved into position. Admiral, we've got full integration across all vessels. Power, data, life support, even crew transfers through the connecting tubes. But here's the beautiful part. If they cut our connections, each ship can still operate independently. How is that possible? Because we designed it that way, ma'am. Every system has a local backup. Every connection has a manual override. Every ship can detach and fight alone if needed. But while we're connected, we're essentially one big ship with distributed hulls. This was the final revelation of human engineering philosophy. Systems that could operate independently or collectively as circumstances required. The Vorthak approach required choosing between individual capability and collective integration. The human approach allowed both simultaneously. Admiral, reported the Washington's captain, we're in position for the demonstration. Admiral Chin nodded grimly. All ships, implement Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was something the Vorthak had never seen before. A human fleet deliberately taking itself apart and rebuilding in real time. Ships disconnected from each other, reconfigured their formations, and reconnected in new patterns within minutes. They're shape-shifting, Zekare reported in disbelief. The fleet just changed from a battle line to a spherical formation to I don't know what that formation is. It's adaptive geometry, Science Officer Rathgul whispered. They can restructure their entire fleet to match tactical requirements in real time. Our bio ships can adapt individually, but we can't restructure our fleet formations during battle. Supreme Admiral Korthval watched as the human fleet demonstrated capabilities that transcended anything in Vorthak military doctrine. Individual ships operating as collective entities, damaged vessels functioning as specialized components, entire formations reshaping themselves based on tactical needs. Sir, Commander Veloth said quietly, I believe we need to consider the possibility that we've encountered a species whose engineering capabilities exceed our own. Impossible. Their technology is primitive. Their individual technologies are simple, sir, but their systems integration capabilities are beyond our comprehension. They've created collective consciousness without losing individual identity. They've built reliable systems using unreliable components. They've achieved fleet-level coordination using mechanical connections. As if to prove her point, the human fleet executed a maneuver that left the Vorthak commander speechless. Half the ships suddenly detached from the collective, moved to surround the Vorthak fleet, and then reconnected to create a three-dimensional net of coordinated vessels. Sir, Zekare reported in a voice barely above a whisper, they've just surrounded our entire fleet using ships that were connected together 30 seconds ago. How did they coordinate that movement? The answer came from an intercepted human transmission. All units, executing pre-planned Maneuver 7 Alpha. Detach on my mark. Move to assigned positions. Reconnect on completion. Remember, if your navigation is down, follow your tow line partner. If your engines are dead, signal for assist. Nobody gets left behind. Nobody gets left behind. This simple phrase encapsulated everything the Vorthak had failed to understand about human engineering. Where Vorthak systems were designed for perfection, human systems were designed for persistence. Where Vorthak technology eliminated weak points, human technology accommodated weakness and transformed it into strength. Supreme Admiral, Medical Commander Cylinder reported, "I'm receiving casualty reports from across the fleet. Our ship minds are suffering complete psychological breakdowns. They can't process the concept of technology that becomes more effective as it takes damage. And our crews. Sir, our crews are trained to operate perfect systems. When the systems become imperfect, our crews don't know how to adapt. The humans appear to train their crews specifically for system failure scenarios." Chief O'Brien was demonstrating this principle as he supervised repairs while under fire. "Captain, we've got teams working on the hull breach, the power conduit failure, and a navigation malfunction simultaneously. Standard emergency protocol. Standard? This level of damage would disable most ships." "Most ships, yes, ma'am, but not human ships. We design our vessels assuming they'll take this kind of damage. Multiple redundancies, manual overrides, cross-training, so any crew member can operate any system. When everything goes wrong, we're just getting started." This was the fundamental difference. Vorthak crews operated perfect systems and were helpless when those systems failed. Human crews operated imperfect systems and were trained to keep fighting when everything went wrong. Supreme Admiral Korthval made the hardest decision of his military career. Signal the human fleet. Request immediate ceasefire and negotiation. "Sir, we're not losing this battle through inferior firepower or poor tactics. We're losing because we built perfect systems for an imperfect universe, and they built imperfect systems that thrive in imperfection." The transmission went out on multiple frequencies, using every communication protocol the Vorthak possessed. The response came back through a simple radio signal that could have been sent by equipment a century old. "Vorthak fleet, this is Admiral Chun of the United Earth Forces. We're prepared to discuss terms." "Admiral Chun," Korthval responded personally, We may have underestimated human capabilities." "Supreme Admiral, with respect, you didn't underestimate our capabilities. You completely misunderstood our approach. You built machines to be perfect. We build machines to be fixable. You created integration through unity. We created integration through cooperation. You eliminated failure points. We learned to thrive despite failure points. And now, Supreme Admiral, I suggest we discuss whether you'd prefer to learn from us or continue fighting us. Because I can guarantee you one thing. Our ships will keep fighting until they're nothing but debris, and even then, we'll probably figure out a way to make the debris dangerous." Supreme Admiral Korthval looked at his damaged fleet, his broken ship minds, his demoralized crews, and made the decision that would change the course of galactic history. "Admiral Chun, the Vorthak hegemony formally requests an engineering exchange program." In the silence that followed, Chief O'Brien's voice could be heard over the comm. "Well, I'll be damned. Looks like they want to learn how to build things the human way." And with that simple statement, the galaxy discovered that sometimes the most advanced technology was knowing when not to be too advanced.